Joining us now, first on CNBC, Georgia Governor Brian Kemp. Governor, thank you so much for joining us. It's great to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you.
So you just heard from Coca-Cola and you saw the memo put out by Delta, two of the biggest employers, taxpayers, companies in your state, coming out more forcefully now against this law. What do you intend to do about that?
Well, it'd be nice if they'd point a specific in the bill that they don't like. Same for Mr. Chenault. He's complaining about this as a moral issue. He should look at his own state of New Jersey. They just now signed a bill to have 9 days of early advance voting. We happen to have 17 days in Georgia, and this bill that I just signed adds more opportunities for people to vote early on the weekend. And that's what's so frustrating about this. A lot of the points that you're putting up on the screen about banning water and food, that's not true. Voters can bring water and food in line. People can serve and hand out bottles of water and food as long as they're outside the 150-foot boundary of a polling location that we keep voters from being harassed, intimidated, or electioneered. County elections officials can still give water. You just said that we were taking away drop boxes. There were counties last year that didn't even have a drop box because it's never appeared in the law before. This legislation mandates that every county have at least one drop box. We have 159 counties in Georgia. 134 of those counties under this legislation will be offering more hours of early voting, not less. So I would encourage these CEOs to look at other states that they're doing business in and compare what the real facts are to Georgia. And I think their focus will probably need to be in other places and not here.
Well, I think that's part of the problem, Governor, is a lot of people look at this as a litmus test and a potential springboard for a number of other pieces of legislation like this happening in 42 different states. And a lot of these companies don't want it to move forward. And with all due respect, they are mentioning specifics. Ken Frazier had a laundry list this morning, including, he pointed to Fulton County, which is a county, he said, that is disproportionately affects black voters, as you limiting the number of drop boxes in that place, just as an example. So there are specifics being mentioned.
Well, I'm sure he also didn't point out that a voter can actually just take their absentee ballot and walk in any precinct or the elections office and hand that ballot off as well. I'm sure he probably missed that point. The other thing about the food and water that everybody's been making such a big deal of, a lot of that happened in Fulton County because you had people standing in line for 3, 4, 5, 6 hours. My question is, why wouldn't that be unacceptable to Mr. Chenault? It certainly is to me, and this legislation addresses that, mandating the number of machines and equipment that each location has to have to shorten the line. Of course, they're not talking about that because that doesn't play in to the narrative that these corporate companies are being attacked from activist groups that have a financial interest in doing so.
Let's just focus quickly on the details on the drop boxes, if we may, and then get on to quite a few other points that you and we all want to discuss. But overall, you're requiring the drop boxes to be secure, but do you acknowledge overall that you are significantly reducing the total number and the number of hours that they're available? And my question linked to that is, surely it's the first point that matters. Make them secure, and then, frankly, make them even more available as long as they're secure.
Right. That's what we're doing, making them secure by putting them inside a voting location or elections office where they're monitored when those offices are open. You know, the thing that you're missing, even if you go back prior to this year, we haven't had drop boxes in Georgia in the law in recent memory. And I'm talking about for decades now. Once the public health state of emergency goes away, the drop box would have gone away with them. So had not we put this in this legislation, there would be no drop boxes anymore. People act like we're taking something away. It never existed until the pandemic. It was done by emergency rule, not by legislative action. Because of the problems we had of drop boxes being out there that were supposed to be secured and they weren't, that's why the legislature addressed this the way that they did. And in fact, the point I made earlier, some counties didn't even have a drop box this last election, and now they will.
I wanted to go back, if I may, Governor, to one point that also has been linked with a lot of the coverage of this, which is the question of whether there was widespread voter fraud in 2020 and then that potentially being used as one of the grounds for this law. Can you just clear up and clarify on both those points? Was there any voter fraud in 2020?
Well, you know, I was Secretary of State for 9 years, and every election cycle we had, every single election, there was instances of some form of voter fraud. So it exists. It happens, you know, more often than not. Whether it's rampant or widespread really depends on the situation, what election it is, whether it's a, you know, big national election or a small mayor's race. That's the duty of the Secretary of State to investigate those. That's being done. A lot of that won't be known until after the investigations are done. But the point is the election has been certified. But there's no questions there were problems. We had a 351% increase in the number of ballots by mail absentee that we had in our state. That created great problems for our county officials doing an arbitrary signature match. And the way the legislature and the bill that I just signed addresses that is to use the voter ID requirement where you're using numbers off of your driver's license to be able to vote absentee by mail versus your signature now, which removes the arbitrary nature. The elections officials that I work with for almost a decade have told me they feel like that's going to be more efficient for them to process. It'll speed up the time of the count, which is always good to give confidence to the voters. And as I mentioned, would be more efficient. And I think it will also be more secure. And the vast majority of people support the voter ID. And in Georgia for decades now, you can, if you don't have an ID, you can get one for free from your county elections office.
Governor, as you know, there are some real questions about your motives in passing this bill and whether you were trying to suppress votes. Just listen to what Merck CEO Ken Frazier said about that.
Were there legislative hearings? No. Were there fact-finding commissions? No. Was there an opportunity for public comment? No. So there is no substantiated, compelling evidence of voter fraud to justify these restrictions.
Governor, if it is really to just protect the integrity of elections and to fight fraud, why did you keep it so secretive? How do you respond to some of those points he made?
Well, first of all, what he's saying is absolutely false. He obviously hasn't been paying attention, and I have great respect for Mr. Frazier, but he obviously didn't pay attention to the process. You can go back as a fine reporter and document that Speaker Ralston created a legislative committee to look into the election and to make suggestions to the General Assembly. That started before the end of last year. Our legislative session started in mid-January. It's finishing tonight. So for the last 2.5 months, the legislature has been meeting. There has been hearings and public meetings and debate on this elections bill. So what he's saying is fundamentally not true. And that's the problem with a lot of this. There's a lot of people that are perceiving things that are not reality. And folks like Mr. Frazier and Mr. Chenault, who I have good respect for, they don't live here. They don't even know what the laws are in Georgia. And quite honestly, our laws are not as restrictive as their own states where they're residing. So perhaps they should focus in other places.
Coca-Cola, Delta, others do live there, are headquartered there and have many, many jobs in your state. And as you've seen, no doubt today, they've spoken out very clearly against this law. Ultimately, if it costs Georgia jobs, is that a price worth paying?
Well, I'm glad to talk about Delta because we've been working with their legislative team and the Coca-Cola legislative team the whole time. Specifically for Delta, they did not express any reservations about the final products of this bill. It wasn't until a couple of days after we signed it that after the political pressure that Ed Bastian is now putting out a statement that quite honestly, nothing he said yet is pointing to any specific points in the bill that are causing suppression or any of those things because it doesn't exist. And, you know, I understand that they have public companies and they have boards that are pressuring them, but that still doesn't change the truth and the fact that this bill expands voting access, especially on the weekends in Georgia. It uses a voter ID, which is free for absentee ballot with mail that'll speed up the process. It requires county elections officials to continuously tabulate,
Governor,
to get every vote counted. and it's a secure, accessible, fair way to do it.
Governor, they don't think so, though. No matter how much you say that, they've come out against it, and they're going to fight it. And what we saw a few years ago with the LGBT bathroom rules was that corporations are very powerful. And once they start threatening boycotts of the state, your predecessor reversed on the rule. So ultimately, you're going to have to deal with the corporate backlash. How far are you willing to take it?
I'm glad to deal with it. I've been a small business owner for 35 years, signing the front of my paycheck. And there's a lot of other hardworking Georgians that are the same way. And if they want to have a debate about the merits and the facts of the bill, then we should do that. But I haven't seen any point that they're making now that would cause me any reservation that we're taking away something here. And I think you'll see that in the next election. It's not going to prevent anybody from having the opportunity to vote in Georgia, despite what they say. And if they want to debate that, we'll continue to do that.
Governor, just to round off very quickly, because I wasn't totally sure from your first answer when I brought this topic up, but do you fully respect the result of the 2020 election?
Well, as you know, this is well documented, too. The Secretary of State in Georgia, per the law and the Constitution, has to certify the election. He did that. I had to authenticate that certification, which I did, and that's the final results. That's why our General Assembly is who it is, and that's why, the other elected officials here and around the country are who they are.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.